What is up, everybody, and welcome back. So this week's going to be quite a bit of a short episode, mostly because we had a heat wave in the UK, so I couldn't really do much. But I managed to at least revamp the actual engine cover and the rocker cover, and that's kind of what I'm going to take you through today, of how I approached this and how I got it done, and with the final results. So starting off, because of the grime on this actual engine cover, I got a brass brush and I just went at it to kind of get all of the oxidation, and made sure to specifically around these letters to kind of get in all those nook and crannies and just scrub it properly to get off any of that dirt and grime that's built up over the years from oil and just dirt sticking to the oil. And you can see it's actually coming out quite nicely. Like, it actually cleans up really well. I was worried that it wasn't going to be very smooth, but the actual brass brush was a great kind of idea to just get into all of those areas and kind of clean them out. Now, when it comes to painting these kind of things, prep is always the biggest thing that kind of makes the job a good job or a bad job, and actually makes it last. So I went ahead, once I have completely scrubbed down the brass brush, used some brake cleaner actually to degrease everything again and kind of loosen up more of that dirt. So you can see here I'm just spraying it with some degreaser, wiping it down, and then I actually went back with the wire brush to kind of loosen more dirt and get into more small areas that I might have missed, and making sure that I don't miss anything before I actually continue on with painting this rocker cover. Now that I've completely cleaned it off, I've got these kind of sandpaper pads, which I actually have for my mouse orbital sander. I didn't want to use the actual orbital sander on this, so manually I had to sand it down to kind of get this nice glossy flat finish on these lettering, and that's just going to give it that brush kind of metal look. In the end, you'll see on the final results. Once I finished sanding down those letters, I got this grit sponge, which is a sanding sponge, and I went over the entire body of the actual rocker cover, getting it into every nook and cranny again, kind of just scuffing it up and getting it ready for that primer to ensure that the primer has something good to adhere to. So there is a lot of this kind of grit coming off onto it, but it is also still cleaning up that aluminum and kind of removing more of that dirt and grime that's into the actual surface. Once I finished scrubbing it down, I got some isopropyl alcohol, and I'm just going to pour that onto the rocker cover so that I have more than enough to kind of cover it, and then wipe it down to ensure that there's no more oils or anything from my hands or any dirt and grime on the actual rocker cover. Now you can see here I forgot to take out the little cap at the top, so it was still sealed. But once I got that open, poured it on, and just cleaned off the rest of the rocker cover. That kind of soaked my entire cloth, so I could just keep on wiping it down and ensuring that everything was nice and clean. Now that I've cleaned it off, I grabbed some masking tape, and I could then tape up the top of where the oil filler cap goes, the insides of the spark plug holes, and then I just rolled up the little pieces and put it into where all the bolts went, so that I didn't get any paint inside of it. Now that it's all covered up, you can see where I've masked it off. I did not mask off the letters because I was going to just sand them again later and clean them off with an actual scalpel or knife, so that we had the exposed metal. I now went ahead and gave it 3 good coats of high temp primer, with 5 minutes in between each layer so that it could just dry nicely. The temperature was quite high this day, so the paint actually dried a lot faster than I expected, and this kind of resulted in me not getting the exact wrinkle pattern that I was expecting, but that was my first time actually painting wrinkle paint, so I definitely could still learn from this and do a better job in the next one. So I'm just making sure that I'm covering everything at least once in this kind of pass. It is a bit rough in all directions, but the biggest thing was to make sure that I'm not missing anything or any areas that might be crucial and give a bad result. Once I've added the 3 coats of primer, I went for this wrinkle high temp painting as well. And the key with these that I learned is you actually want to put it on thicker than you're expecting it to be. Even though it looks like it's covering a really decent amount, and I'm going out quite a thick layer here, it wasn't enough to give the full wrinkle pattern. Instead, I got a very fine wrinkle on mine due to it not being enough paint and actually being loose enough and running enough on the actual surface to do the full wrinkle. So once that was all done, you can see I let it dry for 2 hours, and this was the final result. Here's the before and here's the after. I hope you guys like it. See you in the next one.